Content warnings: SA, CA, grooming, toxic relationships, murder, homophobia, bigotry, torture, poor depictions of mental health, and police brutality. Please watch with caution. Disclaimer, even though I hate having to do disclaimers. This video is about a book series that I did not like. If you liked it, that's nice. Watching this video will be an unfun experience for you. Do what you will with this information. Second disclaimer: there will be jokes in this video. I am not trying to make light of the very serious topics that this book includes. I am making fun of the bad writing and mismanagement of said themes in this book series. Sup nerds, welcome back to my channel. My name's Maddie. If you're new here, I hope your day is going well. And I read a book series that nearly broke me. It took me nearly 4 years to complete this series, and it is none other than the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey. It also took me way too long that is just stabby. Desperately need to talk about what I can only describe as an odd situation with the actual author's death that happened only a few months after I read the first book in this series, The Risk. At this point, I think I've read The Risk 3 different times since I read it in 2021, and I can only tell you that the rest of the series just gets more and more strange. This was first pitched to me as the Criminal Minds Smut series, and it is following a FBI agent and a serial killer, which I can just say sounded intriguing to me. Just wait. I'm going to take you down the lane of mindfuckery, and we are going to establish together what actually happens in this book series, because boy howdy does it get confusing. But before we get into it, please like the video and subscribe, because as I said, this was a very long process to actually just be sitting in this chair filming for you guys. And I also have a vlog of me reading this on my Patreon. You can purchase that as a singular video, or you can subscribe for more content. And without further ado, let's get into the mindfuckery. Synopsis. Monsters come in many forms. They took too much, left too little. I had nothing to lose until him. I didn't expect him. I didn't want to fall in love, but I can't let him go. Logan Bennett makes the world a safer place. He's brilliant. He's a hero. He locks away the sick and depraved. But while he's saving lives, I'm taking them, collecting the debts that are owed to me. 10 years ago, they took from me. They left me for dead. They should have made sure I stayed dead. Now I'm taking from them, one name at a time. I've trained for too long. I've been patient. I can't stop now. Revenge is best served cold. They never see me coming until I paint their walls red. Logan doesn't know how they hurt me. He doesn't know about the screams they ignored. He doesn't know how twisted that town really is. He just knows people are dying. He doesn't know he's in love with their killer. No one suspects a dead girl, and Logan doesn't suspect the girl in his bed. They're looking for a monster, not a girl who loves red, not a girl in love. I'm a faceless nightmare, at least until I tell them the story they've pretended never happened. But in the end, will Logan choose them, or will we watch them burn together? Romance with a stabby twist. Look at how I've damaged this book. Crazy. I do like that the triggers on Goodreads is graphic, adult language. Some triggers could be too much for the easily disturbed reader. Sexual content, fucked up moral compass, read at your own risk. They include adult language and then include an F-bomb in the trigger warnings. And also bear in mind, the triggers aren't even in the book. And I have a particular grind to pick stone, something with the fact that in dark romance books it seems to be like just not required to include what you have trigger wise in your book. I just don't get it. For context though, let me show you the story graph triggers for this book. There's, as you can see, a lot of them. Please watch this video knowing that. Thank you. I got into Criminal Minds in 2020, and I really enjoyed the way that the characters are, almost so passionate about saving people that they go to like vigilante justice, which as most of us know is not how actual police enforcement works. But I enjoyed those casts of characters, despite it being obviously a propaganda show. For some reason, despite that being the kind of baseline for what this book series started on, that's not the framework that we end up with at all. So to start off with, let's introduce our heroine of ill repute, Lana Myers. She is a 26-year-old who has a passion for red fashion and a hobby of killing people. Yes, meek little lady Lana here is a serial killer. But she's not just any kind of serial killer. She's a revenge killer. And in the first of 5 books, we know that she has killed at least 4 men in her pursuit of retribution against what happened to her 10 years ago. The way the book tells us this is we get a list of crossed out names, and Lana tells us that revenge is a dish best served cold, because apparently that means they have forgotten that you're coming. Set the opening scene. Miss Lana here is getting a cup of coffee and a muffin where she is approached by an unequivocally alpha-looking man who she shoots down immediately. This man is named Craig, and he is not of the Daniel variety, but I did include a picture of a Daniel Craig version because Craig just seems like the worst alpha name you could possibly imagine, and he is going to be revealed now. Craig of the not Daniel variety's partner finds this whole interaction hilarious, so he pays for Lana's coffee and muffin, to which she takes offense because apparently she doesn't like free food or something. I don't know. To which the man who paid for her coffee and muffin also seems to think this is a weird thing for her to do, but asks her if this is because she holds like an extreme feminist position about accepting things from men. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you our male love interest, who happens to be an FBI agent and also stupid and blonde. So of course, he has to be played by Matt Donovan from The Vampire Diaries. There's going to be a lot of this kind of logic jumping here, so run with me on this. He gives Lana his card, tells her to call him, and she fucks off and goes and takes a pound of flesh out of a man. Literally. We do not actually see her take the pound of flesh. That is just, there is a lot of closed door flesh taking in this book, but she does garrote him in the first chapter. So all of this is starting off with, like, as, you know, the kids would say, a bang. Like, I don't know about you, but garroting a man within hours of having coffee with an FBI agent, even accidentally, is pretty ballsy. So, Book 1, The Risk. Lana continues to play this risky game by calling the FBI agent she just talked to right before, you know, killing a dude. So these two end up having coffee together and they profile each other because that's like a normal thing for people to do on a first-ish date thing, I guess. And look, I know I don't have a huge understanding of profiling, but I did watch Mindhunters, and I don't think that these two, nor the author of this book, knew anything about profiling either. So there's that. On top of that, the FBI agent profiles Lana so incredibly wrong. Spoiler alert, for most of the 700 pages that this series is, he has no idea who she is and what she's doing, like, at all. He's so incredibly bad at his job, I almost made it a drinking game of how possibly could he not have noticed that his, like, new crush happens to like killing people. Like, how did we get here? Does have an associate run an illegal background check on her, like, immediately, but when it comes back clean, he washes his hands of all responsibility and continues to pursue her romantically. This is where I have to pause and point out this book series is so utterly unromantic. There is no romance between these two. They just see each other, have this hetero, like, absolute, like, lust at first sight, and decide they must bang each other, and then all of a sudden they are apparently in love. I'm not even spoiling anything here. It doesn't feel like there's any buildup. They just want to bang, and then that's it. They're just together. Like, that's not a spoiler. Logan is hunting serial killers, and Lana is giving him job security. It seems like there would be a conflict of interest between these two, but also they seem to have like a symbiotic relationship almost. Like, he's bad at his job, and she seems to be really good at what she's doing, so he's gonna keep doing what he's doing and never find her, which would have been great. Despite the fact that Lana in the first book is the far more interesting of the characters, we barely get any of her backstory in the first installment that actually feels tangible. And she also does a lot of, like, optimizing and centering his schedule in her serial killing. I just don't get it. But despite the fact that there doesn't seem to be a lot happening in the first book, it almost felt like, girl, give us nothing, very Dua Lipa of it all. Like, I wanted to know more because we didn't get anything. So what's so life-changing about Logan and Lana's relationship in the beginning of this series? Texting. This book did come out in 2016, so I guess that kind of makes sense, but, like, I don't get this whole, like, running theme of like people sexting in books. I don't find it attractive at all, but it seems to be a very common theme in romance novels where the two main lovebirds just sext each other, and apparently that gets them so hot and bothered that they want to spend their lives with each other. The only thing that we do find out about Lana is that 10 years ago she did steal the identity of a rich girl who died around the same time that Lana was attacked, and she is able to do what she's doing because she has a secret weapon. That secret weapon's name is Jake, who will be played by none other than Jake from State Farm, who, unrelated, I think is completely adorable and definitely doesn't deserve to be in this role in this video, but I couldn't not include him because Jake is Lana's Batgirl. He is the guy in the chair, the tech wizard, the tech god, the geek squad that she could never have afforded unless he was her best friend. In this book, we have no idea what her connection to him is, by the way. He's just some friend of hers that's helping her murder people. I don't know about you guys, but I started this year with a video about serial killers and how it's kind of weird to me that like they're the best friend of the serial killers are totally cool with being best friends with a serial killer. And if I found out my best friend was a serial killer, I'd have a lot of questions and I'd probably distance myself. I'm just saying. Sorry, Rin. If you need to talk to me about something, let me know. Like, I don't know if it's judgy or not, but like I feel like I would have a problem being friends with a serial killer, just saying. Jake and Lana are basically the same age. They were in high school together. So despite the fact that he was a teenager at the same time that she was in the hospital, he managed to create falsified medical documents having her steal Kennedy Carlisle's identity on the same day she was attacked, and then managed to set her up as the heiress to a ridiculous fortune, and then they've been using this woman's money for the last 10 years. Just so you know, just keep that in mind. The thing about S.T. Abby's writing is it's a great mystery if you don't give your audience any threads to pull on. You just don't give them anything at all. They won't know what's going on, which I guess is technically mysterious. But back to the story. Lana's having a great night surveilling her next mark when who should show up at her door unfucking announced? Not a member of law enforcement, would you guess? Oh look, it is him, the guy of the hour, the man who illegally found her address. She did goad him into doing that, but it's still illegal. Just so you guys know, it is illegal to use resources to find people when they're not implicated in a act. I mean, I'm assuming it's illegal. I shouldn't be saying anything. I'm not a lawyer. Don't take me any word. Don't say anything that I'm taking. I'm going to move on. So as you can imagine, serial killer Lana is a little bit perturbed by the fact that he actually did just show up. But instead of telling him to fuck off and not come back, she has sex with him. Like what you would normally do when a man just shows up at your house unannounced. Flashing forward, because we don't got time for this hetero nonsense, Lana takes a trip to New York where she meets Jake to spy on a couple of people that she has on her little listy poo up here in her head that she's gonna kill, right? Do we know who these people are? No. We don't know that. But they are spying on them, and this was a scene that I actually enjoyed upon the 1 or 2 times that I've read the first book, because it actually feels like there's something happening, and that the people that she's hunting down might know that they're being hunted because some of them have been turning up dead. And don't worry, that tension gets immediately lost. Immediately. Don't think about that, but continue watching because we got places to go. So this is when Lana tells Jake that she happens to be sorta semi-sleeping with, dating an FBI agent. And Jake has the natural reaction of, are you out of your fucking mind? Which, like, you know, he could go a step further and tell her to stop killing people and maybe get some therapy. But of course, we're not going to do that. Not in a book like this. But they do go on this lunch date, right? So she wears a blonde wig and Jake pretends to be blind. Remember that for later in the video, just so you know. The people that Jake and Lana are spying on are not on the board because they are not important enough to put on the board. You will come to find that not a lot of people were important enough to put on the board in this series because they get 0 character development. The people on the board don't even get that much character development anyway. Like, even the main characters, none of that. Like, for some reason, Jake does get a little bit of character development, but it's later on and it has something to do with another character. And we will be talking about that because it gets not fun. On their way out of this lunch date, they do spy a food truck. And guess who would happen to be at the food truck? Just, I don't know, the fucking FBI agent she's dating in New York, which they were apparently by Quantico, I think. Quantico, I think Virginia. I don't know where anybody is anytime, anywhere in this book series. So they're currently in New York, and for some reason, they almost run into Logan. They don't talk to him, though, because remember, she is completely unrecognizable because she's wearing a blonde wig. And she ends this chapter off with a zinger of a line, because this is how she talks. I'm just the typical American woman. Or is it the typical American psycho? The whole book is written like this, bear in mind. Lana is written like a full-fledged narcissist. And I'm not going to quote every single page, even though I almost tried to, and this script is long enough that it could really be most of the book, but I don't want it to be 9 million years long. We both have lives, but as you can probably tell from the length of this video, we're gonna be here for a minute. So get cozy, get a snack, get some beverages. We got places to go, as I've said before. But it's time for a new character introduction. Now we have Hadley Grace, who will be played by the character from One Tree Hill, Haley James, because their names sound similar. Voila! Haley James is a tech wizard god extraordinaire that works for the FBI because the only other option was jail. So, American judicial system, what can I say? And she must be super patriotic if that was literally the only option. So Hadley does a little background search on Dear Lana, and she tells Logan, hey, your girl is kind of loaded, like super wealthy loaded. To which Logan says, hey, that's an invasion of privacy. You shouldn't have done that. But this motherfucker looked up her address and went to that address without telling her he was coming. So I don't know what you're getting off on being a hypocrite, my guy, but it's fucking weird. What a great guy. So more texting happens, and Lana invites herself over to Logan's house, but she does give him a heads up because she's a lady, and they end up having another moment where they're profiling a guy that he's trying to find who's raping and killing women, because he leaves out confidential documents, and she profiles them. I don't even know where she got the profiling skills. She just apparently seems to be good at everything, because that's just who these people are in these books. I don't understand why. Lana manages to hit a note on his current case that makes a literal light bulb go off in Logan's head. It's actually quite comedic. After this little tete-a-tete, Lana returns to New York, which, to be clear, I don't think the laws of like time and space actually affect Lana, but she goes to New York, kills a hobo in the street, and then ends up hunting down one of the men that she was looking for, but I don't think she actually kills him there. I'm not quite sure why. But then flash forward to Jake and Lana basically beating the absolute living shit out of the two guys they spied on in New York. And the thing about the way that these scenes are written is that most of what happens to these men, especially the kill strike, seems to happen off page. Closed door. But you know what does happen on page? We get Lana monologuing and like basically flashbacking to what happened to her 10 years ago and committing the same acts that these men committed on her onto the men in front of her. It is nauseating. It is not a fun experience to read from. It doesn't make me feel vindicated most of the time. It honestly just feels like we're emasculating the men in a way that really feels like an eye for an eye, but not justice. It's hard to describe, and I have a little bit more in-depth analysis as we go through. So let's continue. But bear in mind, the only on-page kill so far has been the hobo. That hasn't had anything to do with anything regarding anything. Yay. Now, clearly we haven't had enough head sex, so guess who shows up at Lana's apartment? It's Logan. Of course it is. But guess who still has blood in her hair? Couldn't be the serial killer, the little itty-bitty serial killer, Lana. She does. She's got blood in her hair, and he doesn't notice. Despite the fact that this man has had his little, crush, serial killer explain his job to him on multiple occasions, and now she has blood in her hair, he still can't do 2 + 2. This man is really bad at math. He does get a little jealous because apparently she has a business partner named Jake who is bi, and that is just not close enough to being wholly gay. Hallelujah. I just love me some biphobia and jealous partnerships. I just love it, guys. It's such a treat. Why would you get this for me? Oh my God. So Logan does fuck off to go look for the boogeyman that Lana helped him profile. And guess who should show up unannounced on his doorstep again? Side note, I know it might be weird, but if anyone ever showed up on my doorstep unannounced, like even if I know you and like you and want you around in my life, I'm still having a conversation with you because absolutely not. We do not do that. We are civilized. We have cellular devices that you can tell me, hey, I'm going to be here at this specific time. I'm going to come over. Like, just call, pick, text, do anything. You guys obviously have a phone. I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Because that's right, ladies and gentlemen, the next person to show up on Lana's doorstep is the one and only Hadley Grace, and she drops the line of, hey, I'll actually make this really quick. Why did you steal the identity of a dead girl? End of book 1. Book 2. For all intents and purposes, that was a mic drop, but don't get it twisted. It goes downhill from here. It just goes straight downhill. Book 2 picks up exactly where we left off at book 1, actually maybe like 10 minutes beforehand, because we get the same line drop from Hadley in this book too. And Lana manages to talk herself out of this for some reason. I don't know why Hadley would leave after having confirmed this with Lana. But Lana does think to herself, I really want to kill this bitch because she knows who I am, or at least knows that I did something that I wasn't supposed to. But she can't kill Hadley because she only kills rapists, and she really wishes that Hadley could rape someone just a little so she could kill her. I'm not fucking with you. That's what happens. The FBI in general puts 2 cops outside Lana's door because apparently she's now very important and she might get involved in this whole like manhunt for the boogeyman, despite the fact that these two have known each other for all of like 30 fucking seconds, technically speaking. This boogeyman hunt is basically becoming much more of a problem, and this character will be played by none other than Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas. He gets absolutely no character development, so might as well, because clearly this is the only way my brain works, so Oogie Boogie it is. Logan comes back to Lana's to check on her, I guess, and he comes with another guy and a girl. So clearly he's not staying or sticking around or spending any time with her. And because Lana is a primo pick-me, not like other girls' girl, she clocks the fact that the girl that he's with is eyeing her a little strange. And this happens to be none other than Logan's ex, whose name is Lisa. And honestly, she's just Lisa. And obviously, despite the fact that these two are grown adults, the fact that Logan could have possibly bumped uglies with someone else in his like 29 years of life is just absolutely ground zero for Lana to have a full-blown conniption. Lana wants to cut her. Just a little. Though Logan is not much better, he talks to his ex incredibly unprofessionally. He tells her to sit down and shut up, or like shut her mouth. And it's just really weird and gross the way he treats Lisa, and just... We'll get there, there's more to it, but like, oh my God, it's fucking ridiculous. He also tells Lana that she's the only woman that he's ever even been tempted to skip work for, because bear in mind, his schedule is the one that we're still working around. He is still far more important than her in this whole scheme of things, and will never not be more important than her. It's just like he will always be the main focus of the story, basically. Like, Lana's world has centered around him since the second he walked into her life, and it's just fucking weird. Just saying. The bar is in hell. Like, ladies, please, for the love of God, spend time with people that actually want to be around you. Like, I've been there. I know what this feels like. Just... moving on. So if we thought for a second that Logan wasn't going to have his own moment of jealousy, we were wrong. He is not comfortable with the fact that a single, hot, younger FBI agent is going to also be staying with Miss Lana because she needs to be protected, despite having nothing to do with this case and only being in his life for, like, as I said, 30 seconds. I don't know about you. I don't know much about how, like, federal agents protect their, like, loved ones, but I'm pretty sure you can't just put a, like, police protection on random people that you kind of are just dating, because that just feels like an invasion of privacy. But, like, what do I know? I'm just a girl on the internet with opinions. Here's the thing. You should just be able to have healthy platonic relationships with people of the opposite sex, and your partner should not be affected by that at all, but that's just me. I just, I think that's not like a crazy thing to ask, but whatever. Also, by the way, the boogeyman has been identified. I just don't feel like updating his picture to anything other than Oogie Boogie because he doesn't get any character development. So let's keep going. So getting off of that soapbox and immediately getting onto another one, Lana mid-meltdown happens to mention to Logan about Hadley. And he's like, oh, no, you don't have to worry about her. She's like my kid sister and also a big old lesbian. Which this information makes calm wash over Lana, and it's interesting to me that really the only thing that makes her relax is the fact that Hadley now only likes women, which takes her out of the running for Logan's affections. But bear in mind, she knows that Lana is cosplaying as a not rich but is rich heiress. Like, she knows some secrets of Lana's, and Lana is only okay with the fact that she's a lesbian and not after Logan. Like, what is not clicking up here? I don't get it. But let's check in with the boogeyman. He happens to be targeting 20-something brunettes. Weird, not great. He is now adding messages because he is going after Logan specifically because Logan identified him. And he added a message carved into the skin of his last victim that just said, "You can't." The FBI ends up getting a tip-off about where the boogeyman's location is, and when they are en route to go find him, Lisa's SUV gets basically driven off the road, and the boogeyman carves a message into her skin. Which seems like it should take a long time, but like Logan's SUV was right behind her, so I'm not quite sure how that happens, but she has now "keep" carved into her arm by a violent serial killer rapist man. Yep. The laws of time and space and physical reality do not affect the mindfuck world, just so you know. Back to Lana, who is not subservient to the laws of man, much less time and space, who finds out that there was an accident involving some of the federal agents, and she decides that she's going to go to the crime scene because Logan hasn't responded to her text messages. Completely normal. Completely valid. Yes, so she decides to go all the way to the crime scene because her boyfriend isn't texting her back and basically involve herself in an active serial killer finding thing for this reason. And the reasoning that she does this is that she's a free person and she can go where she wants, but I'm pretty sure that if you happen to be any person involved with a federal agent, you are not allowed to interfere with a crime scene. I'm pretty sure that's gotta be some kind of crime, but once again, what do I know? Which naturally, Logan knows this, that she's putting herself in danger and other people in danger by showing up at this crime scene. So he goes off on her, like in front of his colleagues and everyone and around. Like, it would have been fine if he had just basically been like, "Go home now," and kept it in, but no, homie just fucking blows up on her. To which Lana kind of just dumps his ass, which should have stuck. They should never have continued. This should have been the warning sign right here. So after they break up, Jake from State Farm calls Lana to tell her a little secret about the federal agent team that she is encountering. Hadley has been hiding a very dark secret, one where she was molested by her stepfather and then diagnosed as a pathological liar as a minor because the people around her didn't believe her when she was growing up. Which to me sounds like information that just wouldn't affect anybody, but Lana decides to take a little jaunt and go murder this woman's estranged stepfather. Now, if I was a serial killer who happened to know that a FBI agent happens to be aware of something about my past that could, I don't know, lead them to figuring out who I actually am, I would go down the pathological liar route, because that could potentially make sure that this woman is not believed about anything to do with me. Yeah, let's go ahead and murder her fucking stepfather. That sounds like a great idea. Do not get me wrong. I'm not trying to defend the child molester here. I'm just saying there is no nuance in these books. We just have either 100% bad guys or 100% good guys, and despite the fact that Lana says she likes to toe the line and she's a monster and a bad person and she has no soul and blah, 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 she's a good person and we are unequivocally supposed to root for her despite the fact that she does indeed do bad things. And she doesn't really have a moral compass, but she's supposed to be the good guy, and so she's gonna go after the bad people, and the bad people are just straight up bad people, which albeit child molesters are just straight up bad people. You see, do you understand what I'm putting down? I'm gonna move on. For Logan, there's this whole plot line about a rat and the FBI who was giving them information, giving the boogeyman information about where they were gonna be, and that's how Lisa ended up being hit by the car. They end up finding out who the rat is, and the boogeyman has his daughter. Logan ends up interrogating the rat with another member of his team named Leonard, who will be played by Leonard. And apparently all of the daytime TV is getting strays at this point because this man didn't do anything to me, but his name is Leonard, so we're keeping him here so that you can remember that his name is Leonard. Yeah, Leonard and Logan, the famous duo, are interrogating the rat. And Lana is, once again, bending reality and showing up somewhere to murder Hadley's stepfather. She has murdered Kenneth Ferguson, Hadley's stepfather. She has murdered this man so good she decides to hide his body in a body of water. What body of water, you may ask? Don't ask questions. She drags his ass, who apparently is very large, like he's a very big man, and she's very little, but she's done this thing where she works out but doesn't work out so much that you can tell that she works out. She eats a lot of calories. Ow. But yeah, so she drags him into a body of water to hide his body. I don't know about you, but I feel like hiding a body in a body of water just isn't necessarily good serial killing, but I haven't killed anyone, so swear to God. So, but in the bad man's house, we find a child.
Boom. A child.
Who, just like in several other dark romance books, when they find kids, they decide that there's no possible way that this child has any other family, so Lana takes the child to Lindy. Half the fun of this series is going back and trying to figure out who the people are that are introduced, because St. Abby does not do a good job of introducing characters. She like breadcrumbs people sometimes, but Lindy is a character that I swear to God isn't mentioned until Lana is bringing a child to Lindy's house. And she's just like, Lindy's a good person, I'll go drop off this kid at her place. Which, bear in mind, I don't know where this person is. Why? Take the kid to the cops, put her in a basket, leave her on a firehouse doorstep. Sorry, I forgot to be holding the mic, my bad. But the way that this book series is written, it's almost script-like. There is very little descriptors. We barely know where anybody is or what anything looks like. Don't know what the body of water, if it was the ocean, if it was a lake, I don't know, I can't tell. But it's almost like this was written kind of like stage directions, very short, jerky dialogue, very succinct tell, not show exposition, and just fucking info dumps that are just mind-numbingly boring at times, to be honest. There's a reason this book took me weeks to fucking get through. This video is late by like several years, but I'm here, I'm doing it, we're getting through it, let's keep going. But Lindy apparently is from a town called Delaney Grove. Delaney Grove is the town that Lana happens to be from. Did we know this? No, but apparently she is. Lindy asks Lana, how many men have you killed of the men that attacked you? And Lana holds up 6 fingers, to which Lindy says, I guess you have a long way to go, which, wow, we don't know how many people are on this list, but oh good lord, it must be a lot at this point. So after a long day of murdering random people, Lana gets in the shower and then she hears a noise, and because she's super smart, she keeps a gun in her bathroom, to which she explains, haven't you ever seen a horror movie? Women always run to the bathroom, so why not have a gun to protect yourself in the bathroom? Okay, didn't think about that, Lana. Cool. But to everyone's, I'm sure, complete shock and awe, the person that broke into Lana's house is our knight in shining police brutality armor, Logan. Logan, he's there, and he is not leaving until him and Miss Thang have a conversation about the fact that they broke up. Remember, they broke up, and he's breaking into her home. He's also incredibly shocked and shooketh that she owns a gun, because he profiled her as this little itty-bitty, absolutely never has any issues with the cop baby. And having a gun apparently destroys that profile, but he still isn't getting it. He's just not putting it together. Why? Would you not put it together? Vance is so fucking stupid. But they do end up having sex. Logan does end up eating her pussy, which apparently is the first time that Lana has ever had that experience before. And he must be pretty good at it because she forgives him. I don't know about y'all, but I've never had my coochie eaten so well that I've gone from breakup mad with someone to being completely cool with them. Man must be a god. He must be better at it than he is at his actual job, so. Despite the fact that this man gives me the impression he doesn't even know where the clit is, Lana seems to have enjoyed herself. After this stimulating scene, Lana goes with Logan to the FBI headquarters. For some reason. Which is where she finds out that the FBI have already found Kenneth Ferguson's dead body. Bear in mind, that is Headley's stepfather, Lana's most recent kill. Seems like she didn't, think about the fact that an obese person would rise in water very quickly. It's almost like she's bad at her not actual job, but she's kind of not good at hiding bodies. Not only does Lana go to the FBI headquarters, so does Lindy with that kid that was found at Kenneth Ferguson's house. For some reason, she doesn't take her straight to the cops or a doctor, but they do end up piecing together that the person that dropped off the kid at Lindy's who killed Kenneth Ferguson was probably also the people that have been killing people related to Delaney Grove, the town, where for some reason something happened and the somebody is killing people related to the town. It's almost like she shouldn't have killed this guy. I don't know. I'm not a serial killer. One of the FBI people does mention that Delaney Grove is a very weird place. In the 90s, when they went and were investigating something, it was very smiling and very almost, I would assume, Hot Fuzz-ish, if you've seen that movie. We don't actually see this version of Delaney Grove in all 700 pages of this book. I feel like it would have been really cool if we got a description like that, or even got a flashback to what it was like for Lana living in this town. We don't. That would have been, good. And if you think that Lana is worried about the connections the FBI is making to her backstory, don't worry, she's not. She's more excited that Logan calls her his girlfriend. We're going steady. Oh my God. I hope he doesn't figure out who I murdered. I know that I take things pretty slow nowadays when it comes to labels, but these two are, they've barely known each other 6 weeks, I think, at this point. Maybe a month. But girlfriend, boyfriend, change your relationship status. Let's go. Hard launch that shit. After what I can assume was being completely useless, Lana drives herself home where she is confronted with the fact that the boogeyman has found out where she lives and attacks her. End of book 2. My camera battery died, so we had to replace that and also have some sustenance. Not sponsored by Chipotle, but hey, if Chipotle, you're listening, just let me know. Book 3, which I didn't put the names of the books in my notes, so editing Maddie will have to tell you what fucking book this is. So once again, in a thriller romance series about a serial killer, we've only added one name to Miss Thang's list, and it's not anyone she was intending to kill. I don't remember why that we didn't add the 2 other guys' names, but it just feels like we're not keeping score as much as we should be, you know what I'm saying? Book 3 does start off a little bit differently than book 2, and that is in a different POV that we've never gotten before, and that is Hadley's. We also start a little bit back before the end of book 2 because we like to redo some of the sequences. I'm not sure why, but we find out that Hadley decides to go to Lana's house to do some sleuthing of her own because she still gets a weird vibe about Lana. Unbeknownst to Harriet the spy here, there is a serial killer waiting in Lana's house to assault her and put her in the closet before waiting for Lana to return home. Meanwhile, Logan does end up finding the daughter of the spy that was ratting them out to the boogeyman, and on her thighs is another message carved specifically for him. That message is her safe. And for some reason, Boy Wonder can't put the words together. It takes yet another person to go, I wonder if it spells out a sentence, you know? Kind of like, I don't know, you can't keep her safe. Man who is bad at math is also bad at, I don't know, basic grammar. How did this man get employed by the US government? Oh, wait. For Fortunately, someone at the FBI does figure this out, so they know that the boogeyman is after Lana. They do not figure it out in time to see Lana beat the ever-loving shit out of the boogeyman. So when Lana returns home, she finds the boogeyman in her house, and then she tells the boogeyman that she doesn't like horror movies. This will come up later, just so you know. The boogeyman is like, okay. And then Lana turns into Black Widow and just nunchucks the fuck out of this dude. She also thanks him for being the person to kill him, and then she kills him with his own knife. After killing the serial killer, she sits and waits for the FBI to figure out that the boogeyman was coming after her. She ends up having to wait a pretty long time, and the entire time she thinks about what an innocent victim of a serial killer attack would act like. It's fucking weird, to be frank. Like, she's like, I don't want to look weak or innocent, but like, do victims rock back and forth? I hate rocking. It makes me nauseous. Or it's just, girl, shut the fuck up. But after the FBI do find Lana in her house, they also find, who do you know, Hadley in the fucking closet, who saw the whole situation. To which Lana thinks maybe she gave up the goose a little bit wild, let her hair down a little bit much, let the serial killer freak fly a little bit too much for the girl who already suspected her of not being who she said she was, being in her closet. Like, she literally was like, oh shit, I fucking monologued like all the bad guys do, and now this girl knows that I'm not who I say I am. Hadley just says, yeah, Lana got lucky. She just luckily enough took the knife away from the serial killer man and killed him. Who could have guessed? Who could have guessed this stroke of luck? This itty tiny princess could have killed a fully grown man. Crazy. But Lana doesn't trust Hadley. She is in fact a woman, and all women are not trustworthy. So Logan is in his true alpha male form, so he tells his FBI team that he's taking a week off to be with his itty bitty victimized princess. And once again, Lana has to like pretend not to be super stinking happy about being able to spend more time with her boyfriend because she was an almost R-word victim here. Like, she has to keep up this persona. Mr. Dude is not picking up on literally any of this. Not at all. Not even the weird interactions between her and Hadley. Nothing. He also doesn't even like check on Hadley. Like, Hadley was also assaulted, and like not even a little bit of like, hey, kid, sis, you okay? None of that. So these two have their week of convalescence. That's when Logan ends up getting a call from Craig, not of the Daniel variety, about Delaney Grove and a secret the town has been trying to cover up for the past 10 years. I wonder what it could be. 10 years ago, the town and the FBI agent that went to investigate covered up a different serial killer. Not the one that's killing people now, but one that was killing women 10 years ago in the town. And apparently this serial killer was never like made national news because of some form of terrorist attack that we never go into in this book because that would be too strange. Apparently the godfather of the FBI went to investigate these attacks and found nothing other than a man who had an alibi given by his 2 children, and then he died in his cell before he could be sentenced. That sounds hinky, doesn't it? On top of all of that, the 2 kids went missing like right after their dad died. Crazy. But there was hospital records that at least the daughter checked into the hospital, specifically the daughter, because she was beaten so badly and essayed so much that she had glass sticking out of her side and her face was beaten in, and then she died. But think about the fact that Lana has had sex with Logan multiple times, and she's told him that she was in a really bad car accident, so much so that she had to have facial reconstruction and that she had a piece of glass sticking out of her side. This does not alert him at all to anything. But also, these two have nothing in common, like at all. Like, after they spent like this week together, they were like playing poker or something. But I just don't really understand what they talk about. They have sex, okay, sure, but like what do you have in common? And also, they're in love with each other. They said the lesbians word, so I don't understand. I don't get it. So after Logan ends up going back into work, Lana decides to have a confrontation with Miss Hadley, where she basically confronts her about having seen her take on a fully grown man and kill him as if she has multiple black belts, which of course she does. But she ends up having a conversation with Hadley where she tells Hadley everything that happened to her. She does this verbatim. She tells us very specifically that she tells Hadley everything that happened to her. But just like that, she doesn't tell us, the reader. She tells Hadley. She tells Hadley, and for hours they talk about what happened to Lana 10 years ago. This has to be one of the most egregious telling not showing I've seen in a book series literally ever. We still have no idea what actually happened to Lana or what is going on with that town, but apparently Hadley is so disgusted she nearly throws up, or actually does throw up. Like, it's really mind-blowingly strange how you could say that I'm telling this girl everything that happened to me, but I'm a first person POV and I'm not allowing the reader to know what I know as a character. This is a huge pet peeve of mine, and it's very common in dark romance books where the main character knows more than we do, or at least like the main love interest usually does. But since Lana's the bad girl, she knows so much more shit about the plotline than we do, and she's just not sharing. And it just, like, caring is sharing and all of that shit. And like, come on. I would like to know what's going on in the book series, and I'm spending an inordinate amount of time going through. The thing about this scene is that, once again, you could get away with doing this in a montage in a Criminal Minds episode where the main character exposits what happened to her, but you really only just see like a montage between these two characters talking, and then you wouldn't necessarily have to explain what happened. But in a book, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. It really just makes me annoyed with the characters because they're not telling me or giving me a reason to give a shit at all. Like, it would have been actually far more interesting if Hadley had done more hacking or sleuthing or something and then confronted Lana with more information, but Lana just gives her the fucking download like we're in the fucking Matrix or something. Like, and well, that could have been so much worse. So after this interaction, Lana decides to move her time frame up, and then Logan ends up finding 2 more bodies in relation to Delaney Grove. And once again, this man does not seem to understand anything about anything and doesn't seem to think that there is anything sexual in this case, despite the fact that these bodies have had their phallic appendages removed and put into the mouths and then sewn shut. I want to take a moment and just talk about the way that this series is so very deeply weird about sexuality and gender. Like, there's several instances in this book series where it tries to be, yay, gay people, but it just comes off weirdly misogynistic and homophobic, and it's like trying to be an ally. Like, it just doesn't really work almost. There's a lot of microaggressions towards gay people, and then there's a lot of moments where the kills and the way that people's bodies and the body horror is described just feels almost like emasculating men is the only way to get back at an R-worder, to be frank, and it's not, and it just makes it seem even stranger narratively to do that to someone's bodies in retaliation for someone else's like bodily autonomy being violated. Because here's the thing, the bad people in this book are homophobic, and that is shoved down your throat all the time, but the main characters are also kind of homophobic. They're just not as homophobic as the people that were hate criming people. But then if you then hate crime a person who was homophobic in a way that they've hate crimed someone else, I don't know how to express this thought process, but I just really didn't like this about this book series at all, if you couldn't tell. Because now we have a new character alert, and it's Lana's brother. Guess what? He's gay. Also, kind of dead, I think. But basically, they used him being gay and Lana having slept with 2 guys as a reason to assault these 2. I guess that's the reasoning that we've semi-deduced at this point in the series for why the residents of Delaney Grove thought it was okay for these two to be attacked. Just the way that like sexuality and even like the way that Lana interacts with other women and the girl hate is so strong. It's very almost like late 2000s level like hatred towards women. It's just weird. It's just very strange. Also, still don't know what happened to him, but we'll get to that. About now is when the Scooby-Doo gang of FBI agents decide, hey, it's probably a good idea to go investigate that town where all of these bodies of people originated from, because all of these people can be traced back to Delaney Grove, right? Which I still don't know which state Delaney Grove is in. There is, for some reason, some idea that maybe it's a southern town for the sensibilities, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, no idea where this is located at all. I even Googled Delaney Grove just to make sure it wasn't an actual town. It's not. It's only references in this book series from what I can tell. It's so annoying that like the reality of like where things are just not important in this series at all. Like at least Criminal Minds was good about at least locating things in states that exist in the world of the country that we're in, and I'm going to move on. So Jake and Lana are hashing things out about their next murder at Jake's place, and then they get a knock on the door. Guess who it could be? Mr. Not So Bad at his job, apparently. Obviously hides, and Logan opens the door to Jacob's home to find Jacob Denver in a wheelchair. This whole fucking scene, I felt gaslit because Logan has never met Jake before. He has no idea that Jake is Lana's business partner. He is just somehow basically put together that Jake and Marcus, a boy that was from Delaney Grove that disappeared, had some history. So that's why he's there. But Jacob is in a wheelchair, and the entire time this scene goes on, I was scrounging my memories about if Jacob had been in a wheelchair the whole fucking time or not, because this book seems to go out of the way to just be as confusing as possible, and I had to go back numerous times trying to figure out if I was just stupid or if this book actually implied that. No, he's not in a wheelchair. He just likes to cosplay disabled people. Remember, he pretended to be blind in the first book, and we never come back to that at all. But this whole scene, ableist as fucking hell, because Logan decides, oh, well, this guy's in a wheelchair, so clearly he couldn't have murdered anyone. And not only that, they then break into his apartment after Jacob goes and like helps kids in wheelchairs like play basketball or something, and it's just gross. It's just actually really gross. But so as I said, the reason that Lana and Jake are close friends is because they knew each other in high school, and Jacob was Marcus's, who is actually Lana's brother, boyfriend, but he wouldn't actually tell anyone because, as I said, Jake is bi, and he didn't want to have a gay relationship in his small town. For, I guess, reasons that are the fact that everyone in this town is homophobic, and for what we find out that happened to Marcus, I don't blame Jacob for not being out of the closet in his small town. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's continue. Go on though. Jake has not dated anyone seriously since Marcus. So it's been 10 years. He's at least 26, maybe 27, because Marcus, I think, was older than Lana. And he has not dated anyone seriously. Keep that in mind. Like, I don't know, maybe putting that you like to cosplay disabled people on a dating app just doesn't hit, you know? Maybe he's just not getting any swipes. Who knows? Speaking of actual fucked shit, Hadley has a bone to pick with Lana because Lana is starting to play a little petty game with Lisa. You remember Lisa, who is just Lisa, but also apparently Logan's ex? Yeah, Lana decided to send Lisa a bouquet of roses to the hospital that Lisa's in because she was in a car accident, and then addressed them basically as if they were from the boogeyman. The boogeyman that carved a fucking word into this woman's arm. That's fucking crazy. That's insane. Like, don't get me wrong, I can get behind a petty, like, joke or whatever, but, like, this is a level of bothered that just doesn't make sense for Lana's character at all. Like, I usually support women's rights and wrongs, but this is psychotic. But speaking of petty, Lana, within this particular juncture, basically says that her and Logan's love is on the level of a Shakespearean tragedy, and I feel like I should be able to sue for damages specifically because of that line. And also, she's been quoting Shakespeare and like Voltaire and Einstein and stuff, kind of like Criminal Minds, and it just sometimes feels like the author is making up quotes to fit whatever fucking chapter she's doing, because some of them just don't feel real. I didn't Google them. I did not have the time to do that for this video. But just so you know, it's very annoying, and bad authors should not use good authors to try and make their work look better. Logan is alerted to the fact that the godfather of the FBI will be coming into town. We don't really get an explanation of what the godfather means, but this is going to be SSA Johnson, who will be played by SSA Johnson from Die Hard, because obviously. This whole Scooby-Doo FBI gang has profiled the town of Delaney Grove and has decided that the serial killer that is targeting people from this town is targeting alphas from this town. And I don't know, man. Once again, not a federal agent, but I really don't think that the FBI is into a megaverse like that. I just really don't think that's the case. But they do find out that Kyle Davenport is in protective custody. And this is interesting on a couple of notes, mostly because he happens to be the sheriff's son and also fits the profile. I'm not sure if this was the profile of the serial killer or the profile of the victim. I'm leaning towards victim of the alpha situation. I hate that fucking word. I really do. It's so stupid. Now, this is where I have to ask the audience to run with me, because Kyle is going to be a very big part of the story going forward, but I can't take this man seriously because his name is fucking Kyle. And I don't watch South Park, but I couldn't help but use this picture. And what could only be considered a series of very unfortunate events, for some reason, Lana is brought on the Delaney Grove trip. I don't really understand why. She doesn't get herself taken along with. She's technically invited, even though she managed to fuck up a serial killer investigation last time and nearly got herself killed. Logan decides to bring her to this town with an active serial killer on the loose. Okay, I guess. Hadley also decides to be on Lana's side because Lana is clearly not a psychopath, because psychopaths can't love. And there's this really weird interaction where Lana says she's not a psychopath, and it's kind of vaguely reminiscent of Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory being like, I can't be, my mom got me tested. The lack of real representation of psychology in this is alarming, to say the least. Lana also lore drops at some point that the sheriff of this town practically owns the whole town. If you want to buy a house, if you want to go to the grocery store, you're going to be putting money in his pocket. And I would feel like if you were that in control of a town, sheriff seems to be the last position you would want to hold. Mayor or some kind of bureaucracy person would probably be a lot better. Sheriffs have responsibility in small towns, and if you happen to be that rich, why would you want to be the sheriff? You could be anything and then also just control the sheriff. I don't know. But now we have the sheriff of Delaney Grove on the... But Lana ends up stopping this conversation with Hadley to tell her that she's going to go buy some lube. Which for a second I was like, oh my god, are we going to do a pegging scene? Because of course she'd already made a joke about pegging, and Logan was like, absolutely the fuck not. You don't get to touch my butt. And she's like, well, maybe you just need to own your sexuality more or something. Do you see how I think it's weird about the way that they handle homosexuality? Yeah, okay. So I thought we were going to get something interesting. We're not. We ended up going into a sequence where she is getting her murder girl on, and that's what the lube is for. Once again, we are still getting those flashbacks interspersed throughout the sequences where she's killing people, and that's how we find out that Kyle was definitely the ringleader for what happened to Lana. And I think this is the part where one of these guys enjoys himself during the murder, and she calls him a sexual deviant, which I don't like that at all. I think that that's gross, and it's weird that this book is kink shaming anybody. Just saying. Just because masochism makes people uncomfortable doesn't mean that they're a bad person. And obviously, this is not based in reality at all, and it's not okay that this person hurt her, but it still grosses me out that these murder scenes are almost as explicit, if not more explicit, sexually rather than like murder-y than the hetero nonsense that we get between these two. I think that's what bothers me about it. Bear in mind, there is nothing to distinguish any of these men, like, at all. She does end up burning this guy's house down, which I feel like is her, like, evolving into a slightly better serial killer, because at least she's covering her tracks in this one. But back to Delaney Grove in general, weird messages are appearing out of nowhere, because apparently that's something that the genius duo here can do. The fountain is running red, and we find out that the mindfuck title of this series is because Lana isn't trying to get revenge on the people that assaulted her. She's trying to get revenge on the whole goddamn town, and she plans on causing them a panic as much as she possibly can. This is all sorts of biblical, which definitely leads with the title of this book, which is, I guess, Scarlet Angel, even though the nomenclature that Lana has been given by the media is Scarlet Slayer. I don't know why we changed those. Who knows? But this story ends with a random person in the town deciding to tell the FBI everything that happened 10 years ago. End of book 3. Book 4 starts off with a quote from Voltaire that basically says, governments need butchers and shepherds, and which Lana gives her 2 cents and says that Voltaire would think Logan and her could take over the fucking world. To which I say, absolutely goddamn not. Voltaire would think you guys need to go to therapy. I don't really know much about Voltaire, but no. I just can't think of a pair less suited of running a 7-Eleven, much less the work. We open book 4 where book 3 ended to a random woman deciding to tell us exactly what happened 10 years ago in the good old town of Delaney Grove. This is the first woman of color, I think, in the entire series, and I know that because she is described by having chocolate skin as stark contrast to her ivory dress. Don't look at me. I didn't write it. This is Diana Barnes. And she, in all of her magicalness, decides to give us a rundown of what we don't know as readers, and also fill in Mr. Boy Wonder here about what's going on in the town and why everyone is freaked the fuck out. There is literally no sleuth work here. She's never been mentioned before, and she comes out of nowhere and just decides to bloop, download literally everything we don't know. So Diana had a son named Dev, who apparently knew the boys that were involved in an assault that happened 10 years ago on the kids of the serial killer that had been charged with the assaults and murders of women in the town. Dev apparently did not get involved in this assault, but 13 other boys did. And I do want to point out that, once again, I don't know where Delaney Grove is in the context of the United States, but Miss Diana Barnes, the only on-page black woman, is the only person with a very clearly defined Southern accent, and that's just strange. But Diana does paint a very disturbing picture of what happened 10 years ago, one that becomes more and more far-fetched as it goes. Apparently, evil boy Carl decides to punish the offspring of the man that was put in prison because Kyle's and the sheriff's daughter, Kyle's sister, was one of the girls that was murdered by this serial killer. And so he rounds up a bunch of boys, like high school boys, because he is also the same age as Lana, like they dated in high school, and decides to attack Lana, Victoria Evans, as her real name is, and Marcus, in the middle of town. Like he gathers up a bunch of boys, and this happens in the middle of town. We don't really get a sense that anyone actually tried to stop this happening. Like, there's a reference to the fact that Lindy wanted to stop it, but then there's something to do with her husband, and like Lindy was also apparently attacked by Kyle, and then her husband basically decided to leave her. But there is no mention of like what exactly happened in the middle of town that day. Like, did anyone go, hey, maybe we should stop the 13 boys from ravaging the people in the middle of town? Like, Once again, I would like to point out, I don't have any credentials here. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have any sort of political science background, but the way that Kyle is characterized is just weird. He doesn't seem to have any actual background, and he's just evil, like with a capital E trademarked. And this whole sequence is just poorly written torture porn. And when I say poorly written, I've mentioned this before, torture porn can be well written. Like Den of Vipers is a book series that has aspects of that, and it's a fun time. Is it well written in like all sorts of ways? No, but this was bad. This was ludicrously bad and disrespectful in a lot of ways, just on sheer fucking face value. Kyle was a monster just waiting to be unleashed. Once that sort of evil escapes from a box, it doesn't go back in. Except Kyle never left this small town. And from what we know, he didn't go on to continue to murder anyone. This is like supposedly like the only thing that he's done, other than the fact that he seems to be a pretty bad person when it comes to his relationships. From this massive unearned info dump, the FBI has found a nugget that they need to go follow, and they have to talk to somebody. And that person is Robert Evans's, which is technically Lana's dad's name's best friend in the whole wide world, who happens to live just a little ways away from Delaney Grove, where, no idea. But it's Christopher Denver, Jacob's dad, who has not been mentioned before until now, in context of the story, that is. The only thing the FBI manages to glean from Christopher Denver is the fact that Robert Evans definitely, according to this man, was not the actual serial killer that killed the ladies in the town prior to Robert Evans being charged, and that also Christopher Denver doesn't feel well. That's like the extent of that nugget that they went down that goose chase for. Lana decides to go visit Diana and then gives this old lady like practically a heart attack. And there's no reason for her to go check on Diana other than to be like, hey, hi, I'm alive. Because she is, remember, Victoria Evans, the woman that the girl that everyone in Delaney Grove thinks is dead. And Diana nearly dies. And there's no reason for Lana to do this. And I'm just going to add another charge of elder abuse onto Lana's rap sheet. Because why did you do that? So as Boy Wonder and his partner is leaving the Christopher Denver's place, they get jumped by a deputy from this town and nearly get knocked out. They are federally trained agents. But Logan is so strong that he doesn't lose consciousness after getting smacked around by a deputy. And he hears a distinctly feminine laugh and sees what he thinks is a feminine form take down the deputy that hit him on the head. I wonder who it could be. And before you can say, are the straights okay, Lana is by his side asking him if he's all right. She's also small. The person he saw was very small. This man is still not putting it together. Not even a little bit. It hasn't even crossed his mind. He hasn't even gone in a whiff at all. Like, he doesn't even think about how it's weird that I'm pretty sure she was supposed to be in Delaney Grove and then they had to drive an hour to go see Mr. Denver. But somehow she's here, but apparently he's totally cool with the fact that she can just teleport. After this altercation, he is cosplaying Eminem in that one Mariah Carey video as to say obsessed with the idea of a female serial killer. He's so close. He's so close. And now for something completely different. The town has a haunted house. There's a haunted house night. I don't know if this book series is actually supposed to be taking place in October, but apparently there's a haunted house night. And that's just, yeah, you just need to know that. But this is apparently a night where really bad shit happens. Like Kyle here likes to do some shit in the haunted house, if you get my drift. Also, I forgot to mention, she monologued to the boogeyman about how she only goes after like truly powerful men. But I don't know why the fact that she says that she only goes after truly powerful men, the people that assaulted her were like really powerful men. But the men that assaulted her were all high school boys. And this guy's abuse of power is in a haunted house in a small town. Like, she was talking like there were big rollers or something like that. I'm not like protecting the R-worders here. I'm just saying it just seems a little bit inconsistent writing-wise for you to say that your main character only goes after powerful men because that's the people that assaulted her, because she's so amazing that she only gets R-worded by people who are like really powerful, but the men that assaulted her live in small towns and use haunted houses to do bad shit. And now for something completely different. Carl Burrows, who isn't important enough to put... And now for something completely different. Carl Burrows, the town's coroner, who has technically been mentioned, but hasn't been important enough and isn't important enough to put on the actual murder board. He is the town's coroner, and the FBI think, hey, maybe it would be a good idea for us to go talk to the town's coroner, who may have, like, I don't know, seen the bodies of the dead people that this town just decided to cover up. And he is described as, he's short, has a touch of Oriental in his bloodline given the shape of his eyes and cheeks. Bitch, yikes! Carl, who goes by Burrows for some reason, despite the fact that most of the people in this book are not last named. They go by their first name. So I'm going to keep calling him Carl for this because obviously that's funnier. Says to the FBI agents that show up at his house that he's studying the decaying process. So that's why there's a bunch of rotting shit in his house. Which, according to our leading man, it smells like death met a rotten asshole and had 5 puke babies. And as a representative of the millennials, I would like to formally apologize to everyone who had to hear that particular assault of the English language on their ears. It's just a fucking war crime of cringe. I don't really know how this book could manage to make cringe a war crime, but it did. Carl tells the FBI that Robert Evans definitely didn't kill himself, like for sure, and that the town of Delaney Grove has been sitting on this information for quite some time. And considering he's the coroner, and I'm assuming wrote out the cause of death, which was supposedly hanging, like suicide, this entire town and him as well should be held accountable. Like, I'm pretty sure that's illegal, right? I'm not an attorney, but he's copping to having forged medical documentation at this point. Apparently Lana and Marcus's dad was violently assaulted just like they were. This is ridiculous. They finally go to Kyle's house, which honest to God is probably the thing that broke my suspension of disbelief the most, because a millennial owning property, get fucking real. But in the interaction that Kyle has with the FBI, he talks to them in a towel. I don't know if he was getting out of the shower. It's not even mentioned. But Logan decides within 2 minutes of meeting this man that this man cannot be a psychopath. He's obviously a sociopath. This man is just too much of a Chad energy dude to be able to be the person they're looking for? Question mark? Once again, I don't think Logan has a psych degree, so I do think he cannot be diagnosing people with that type of mental disorder. But he does, because that's what we're doing in this book series. So despite the fact that at this point Logan has heard multiple witnesses to this man R-wording people, even though it was 10 years ago and he is somehow implicated into the deaths of some of those people, he lets this man be. He just walks out after having 2-minute conversation with this dude. And Kyle, before he lets Logan go, tells him, hey, your girlfriend I've seen around town, that pretty brunette, I can treat her right. And Logan does nothing. Mr. Alpha does fuck all about this man, who he has heard several accounts of being an R-worder and not a good dude. And he just walks away. Mr. Alpha, Mr. Bigman, Mr. FBI agent can't fucking do shit when Kyle basically implies that he's gonna attack Mr. Dude's girlfriend. What? Logan, evil incarnate, is making you look like a cuck. But don't worry, that same girlfriend is making the town go insane because she's running through that haunted house that I mentioned before with a live fucking chainsaw. Yeah, let's go. But she did this on purpose because she was gonna drag Kyle out through a tiny hole that apparently the FBI people didn't find until many hours after she kidnaps Kyle. Because bear in mind, he's been under police protection, but apparently they're just not very good at their jobs. Crazy. Here's the thing. This book is definitely not ACAB, but it is ACAS, which is all cops are stupid, because what do you mean? What do you mean they're top witness, top target suspect dude gets kidnapped right out of under their noses? What do you mean? So after that, top suspect goes missing, his girlfriend tells him she needs to go back home, which I'm assuming is Virginia, and this guy doesn't put it together that she's gonna be gone the same amount of time that this guy's missing. And once again, the scene between Lana and Kyle is just her remembering what he said to her and repeating it back to him, and I don't even think he dies on page. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he doesn't die on page. It's a gruesome scene. It's really gross. I honestly don't love the fact that she parrots the way that the guys treated her back to them, because it just feels like perpetuating the same crimes, and it doesn't feel it doesn't feel good. Almost feels like the sexy scenes in this book series are the scenes where she's killing the men but using the vicious attack she went through as the sexy part. It's almost makes serial killer rape revenge fantasy sexy for the male gaze. So after this intense sequence, right, this very intense moment, Lana slides into bed with Logan, and then Lisa walks in without knocking, and then what ensues is what I can only describe as a cat fight. The lack of self-awareness in this is insane. So literally right after that happens, we find Kyle's body flagellated, flayed, and strung up on the town's fucking church. Wow. But then right after that, Lana spits her gum into Lisa's hair because she has such awesome aim, she gets it right in there. But we do have at least one detective on this team, and it's Leonard. Leonard is a wild card. We don't know much about him, if anything at all, but he tells Logan that he has a theory. Theories are dangerous. Theories mean you're thinking. Theories might give up the goat. I don't know where I'm going with this analogy. Let's continue. Leonard tells Logan it's kind of weird that at the same hospital that the girl that was murdered in this town 10 years ago, on the same night she was in the hospital, an heiress named Kennedy Carlisle was also in a car accident that was so damaging to her body, but she managed to walk out of it with Jacob Denver, the girl that died in Delaney Grove's best friend 10 years ago, and this woman just walks out of this hospital completely fine. And also, this woman goes by Lana Myers. Leonard isn't doing math, he's doing blow your mind calculus. Despite the fact that he seems to have a PhD in this calculus, he can't put on a seatbelt and then nearly gets yeeted out of the car when Logan hits on the brakes. And this is a call out post to my partner, who likes to also not wear their seatbelt in my car. So Logan slams on the brake and nearly yeets dear Leonard out of the car, and he has a meltdown because his vision of his small, itty bitty, tiny, little, small, what is another word for tiny, vision of his girlfriend comes crashing down on him like squat rack on leg day. Just fucking down. Just everything comes crashing down. Leonard, as a very nice person that he is, tries to remind Logan that Lana loves him and they're in lesbians, and I don't really know why Leonard gives a shit about their relationship, to be honest. I don't think that Logan and Leonard are all that close because Leonard doesn't have literally any fucking character development or backstory or anything. But Logan does not have any ability to handle his emotions right now, and tells Leonard to kind of fuck off because he's gonna go assault his girlfriend. You heard me. Bear in mind, Logan's inner monologue at this point in the book is, I've loved a killer who I knew nothing about. I loved a girl who was obsessed with the dead family to the extent of killing or manipulated by a man who preyed on her psychosis. Logan doesn't have girl math, but he does have Logan math, and I just don't think any of us are prepared for it. Logan goes back to Lana's cabin, where she's, I guess, staying in Delaney Grove, I guess. I don't really know. And has sex with her. Totally normal thing to do when you find out that the woman that you've been dating is also apparently someone that may or may not be controlled by a man that you ruled out as a suspect, but now you think that she is that suspect. And he does it in a way that is not okay, like at all. Like really bad. Logan has coitus with Lana in a way that makes it clear that she's punishing her for having duped him. Romance. He then handcuffs her to the bed and leaves her there. Which, despite the fact that he should know that the serial killer that's been offing these people has superhuman abilities, he doesn't seem to think she can get out of these handcuffs. And he leaves her there for a decent amount of time, and we don't really even think about that at all. They just had sex and he just leaves her there. But that's okay because end of book 4. Fuck, I'm tired. You want some chips and queso? You deserve it. So Lana starts book 5 in this series without a list update. We get basically a fuck it, we ball for her list, and she says it's time for the end game. And I do think that Marvel owes me reparations at this point because of how ridiculous some of the writing style has become in a lot of these books, because what the fuck is even that? So what was so urgent for Logan to leave his prime suspect for the murders in this town just cuffed to a bed and go investigate immediately? Apparently he needed to go talk to Hadley because in his mind his itty-bitty little girlfriend has been controlled by this dude who he kind of neglects to mention he was in a wheelchair. It just never comes up again at all. But he completely believes that Lana was controlled by a mastermind, because even though he was gung-ho about the idea of it being a female serial killer, that's out now because Lana could never. So basically the only options that exist are either she is being controlled by someone or she's a drug addict. That is the only reasons this could possibly be happening to his itty-bitty girlfriend. But as he's looking at a hard file of the medical record of Victoria Evans, he starts thinking. Dangerous thing to be doing in this day and age. And he starts realizing that that medical file and the pictures of the attack on Victoria Evans matches what's on his girlfriend's body. Like the scars that she has look like what happened to Victoria Evans, not what happened to Kennedy Carlisle. And then we get there. He got there, ladies and gentlemen. He figured it out. Oh my god. Boom, 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 boom. But this reveal has Leonard shocked Pikachu face. He could never have guessed that Victoria Evans did not in fact die at the hands of this town, but that she came back and took on the identity of a dead girl to punish the town that so cruelly treated her and her family. And Leonard does say that the reason that Lana probably hasn't gone full dark mode is because she loves Logan. To which Logan, after finding out all of this information, does a full 180, because apparently if it was like some rich lady who had just decided to become fully obsessed with this town and kill off these people for people she didn't know, that would be bad. But because it's Victoria Evans, everything is fine. And he does realize that maybe going and having violent sex with a R-word victim was probably not the smartest of moves on his part. We love a man with a semblance of emotional maturity. More on that later. The next clue that Boyfriend of the Year picks up on is that Christopher Denver has a cabin in this town, apparently. So he goes there and he finds Jake from State Farm. Don't you just love it when the pieces of the puzzle just all kind of come together as if you actually tried at all to do your job, my man? Every time I take a break, I keep forgetting to pick up the mic. Sorry about that. Logan ends up grilling Jake actually a little bit too hard, especially compared to how Logan treated Kyle, if we remember that. He's like really aggressive with Jake in a way that I don't feel like was necessary. But Jake basically says, well, we stole that heiress's money and life because she was a self-absorbed drug addict who was a motherfucking menace to society. It was only a matter of time before she got as high as her parents got drunk and killed someone. As a fate would have it, she only killed a tree that night. She also killed herself. Seemed like a waste of a perfectly good identity and funds for someone who needed to survive. Once again, I'm not going to argue with the fact that like people who drive intoxicated are the fucking worst. That's true. We should all absolutely understand that. But I do feel like this is begging the question of who Kennedy Carlisle was and where did her money come from? Because though I'm not like, an expert, I have watched Succession, and when a person who dies that had a lot of money, people notice that they're gone and they also want that money. So why on earth did this heiress disappear and then change her name, and no one who was involved with the actual heiress's life ever go looking for her? Did she only have parents? There wasn't any other extended family members or anybody who may have related to what the money was about? Because according to Hadley, it was a lot of fucking money. So like, why is it possible that these two knuckleheads, when they were teenagers, mind you, could steal the identity of someone with that much money and then live off that money for a decade, and no one thought to go looking for this heiress? Even if she was a drug addicted bitch? Like, I don't understand. And like, also, drug addicts deserve decent respect and human dignity, even if they're dealing with addiction. Just gonna point that out right now. Moving on. So Jake does inform Logan that when he heard that Lana was messing with Logan, that he was feeling a little perturbed about the whole thing because, he is an accessory to fucking murder. But he had never seen Lana smile like that. So it was okay that she was dating a federal fucking agent, and that despite that she had always centered revenge, she was now kind of centering Logan, which is a weird thing for your best friend to be proud of for you, but okay, maybe it's a little bit of a nice change of pace from the whole revenge situation. Like, maybe I shouldn't say this, but like, don't center men unless you're killing them, I guess. That's a joke. Don't take that out of context, okay? Please. Jake continues to exposit about Lana and tells Logan that their love is true love, and that it looks past people's offensives and into the true soul. And I feel like people in toxic relationships do this a lot, where they try to say that their love is like different from other people's and it's like uber special, and it's like, no, you're just bad for each other. You might like the way you feel around each other, but everyone else feels uncomfortable. And Jake, being the talking piece here, feels weird optically because I don't feel like he would like these two at all, but we're gonna get to him in a minute, so let's keep going. Logan holds a gun at Jake and asks him where the fuck Lana is. And I just, once again, want to say, he didn't do anything to Kyle at all. But he holds a gun to his girlfriend's currently ex-girlfriend's best friend, and thinks that's going to win him brownie points. And Jake, because he's a super genius, sets off some kind of like sonic bomb and gets the hell out of there. Makes like a tree and leaves, so to speak. The next series of events are confusing. Not to say that the entirety of the plot of this whole series hasn't been convoluted as hell, but it does get odd. And honest to God, I don't want to keep talking about this anymore, so we're gonna get through this shit a little bit quicker. So Lana is off finishing off her list of people who are not important, to say the least, but one of them does ask or somebody asks Lana, well, do you know who the original killer was? Because remember, 10 years ago, there was a serial killer in this town killing off women and hurting them, but they charged her father for it and he did not do it. And she says, yes, I do know who the original killer is. And we're like, share with the fucking class, bitch. Who is it? Who is this person? Why didn't you go after them first? What the fuck? So I would have assumed that, considering the fact that we know that the sheriff has control over the town, that it would most likely be him, because this town had to be scared of this person, right? Like the town had to have like some kind of reason not to protect these children that were assaulted, and also allow this man who was innocent to be put away for this crime and also brutally assaulted and murdered. No. After Lana is off murdering people, she goes back to her bat cave, wherever she's fucking staying, and has monitored the whole town with a bunch of cameras for the last little bit. She hears some noises coming from Jake's room. Some noises like people are in pain or something. So she busts down the door, armed and ready and dangerous, and finds Jake and Hadley together in bed. Before Lana can leave the room, Jake tells her to get out and then rolls Hadley underneath him, and his hips keep moving.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Now here's the thing, I have not had the very embarrassing experience of being walked in on mid-coitus, but I can tell you for a fact that as trauma-bonded siblings, I would hope that there would be some decency of respect to let your supposed sibling leave the room after the 3 seconds for them to realize that they had walked into something that they shouldn't have. But apparently Jake has never heard of decorum in his goddamn life. But also remember, she's a lesbian. Also, when Jake comes to talk to Lana about this, she monologues about how to kill someone in a shower, like the horror movies that she didn't like, remember that? But of course, Jake is like, hey, why did you karate chop my door down? And Lana, light of my life, plonk of my harpsichord, absolute beauty of a person, says this: I heard noises that didn't sound like pleasure, which really should say something about your skills. So I barged in to save your life. From a lesbian who had your dick captive in her vagina. Lips twitch. You said to play nice. I didn't say those words, and how does play nice translate to fuck her raw? Which also, I don't know how she knows that he was fucking her raw. And also, Jake, no protection? You just met this bitch like 30 seconds ago. What? So the reasoning that these two end up sleeping together within an hour of them meeting is apparently because they both like computers. What? Despite it being established that Jake has not had any relationship since Marcus because he's so traumatized about what happened to this here dude, and Hadley has been traumatized by men so much in her life that she hasn't dated them either, but apparently everything to do with Lana has made her okay with men now. And apparently Jake just wanted some ass. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't understand. I'm so tired. Oh my god, I gotta go get something stronger. Sláinte! So Hadley has been cured of her lesbianism, and Jake's on the rebound at 10 years later. So at the site of Lana's last kill, she left a message for her now, I guess, ex-boyfriend, where she left pretty much, hey, fuck you for what you did to me, and for teaming up with the town, I guess. And she writes out a less than 3 emoji in this message, which I'm going to assume probably was just an actual heart, but is a less than 3 in the book. So I'm going to just run with the fact that she did that as well on the actual wall that she wrote this in blood, by the way, because that's millennial cringe if I have ever heard it or not, you know? Of course, Lisa, who is just Lisa, but also Logan's girlfriend, has to mention that this whole situation is really petty, and isn't Logan's girlfriend kind of petty? Like, you know how she spit gum in my hair for some fucking reason? I actually have no idea if she ever finds out that Lana sent those flowers, but like, that is diabolical. That's fucked up and absolute bullshit. Oh, actually, she does know, because Logan tells her, he's like, Logan may have spit gum in your hair, but I would have slapped you. Workplace violence, my guy. Despite the fact that we are now 100 pages before the end of this ordeal, we are still introducing new characters, but there's no room on the board at this point, so I will not be including them. I will just give you the dregs of what you need to know so that we get through this. But thank you. Pat yourself on the back for being here with me for this ordeal. And leave me like a skull emoji down below in the comments so we can boost engagement together. I really appreciate you. Let's finish this now. So our forlorn lovers do end up meeting up in the woods of Delaney Grove, or at least in some wooded area, and instead of, I don't know, having a conversation or shooting each other, Logan just plants one on Lana's lips, just kisses her smack dab on the mouth, because what would bodily autonomy be in dark romance if not completely taken away and violated by the main love interest? I get that non-consent is a kink. I've dabbled myself. I get it. I understand. But the thing about these books that never seem to understand what non-consent kink-wise is that there needs to be a conversation prior to that happening between these people. And it didn't happen. And Logan once again just assumed that he had access to Lana's body, despite the fact that she has basically said, go fuck yourself to him, after killing people. Like, man has no fucking brain power whatsoever. Like, he made one logic jump and is like, oh, I must be God. I must understand everything now. Just don't understand why we couldn't have at least a singular conversation before lip cuddling. I don't get it. But despite the fact that at this point Logan has assaulted her in the last 2 times that she's seen him, Lana thinks exactly what many women have thought in this situation, which is, as far as the sex goes, I could have stopped it. I just loved you enough to take your anger knowing I deserved it. This whole thing, this whole sequence is framed as a good thing. His partner in a violent way and thinking you deserved it is not okay. I don't really think I need to have a psychology degree to understand that. I don't think that should be as mind-blowing as I feel like sometimes these books make it out to be. Additionally, in this scene, Logan doesn't apologize. Like, he basically indicates that he feels bad and that he acted poorly in the scene that he came in and violently forces himself on Lana. But the words "I'm sorry" do not come out of this man's mouth literally the whole book, I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm truly having trouble deciphering the difference between this man and the men that punished her for the acts her father did previously. I don't understand. He thought that he was punishing her, and she thought that he was punishing her, and then I'm getting annoyed. We need to move on. But Lana takes him to the Batcave so they can have sex. Bear in mind, the sex scenes in this have been really, really boring, and they've been short, and they haven't had like any stimulation whatsoever, because there's like no tension between these two, even when he's mad at her and like attacking her. Like, it's just bad. So Logan is now full team Lana, and he gets called in by SSA Johnson. Remember, oh, by the way, he's the Godfather because apparently he like created policies and shit, and he was so bad at his job he got promoted. I don't know if I ever explained that. For this book series is definitely the American judicial system in a fucking nutshell. But yeah, so Logan gets called in because the FBI has decided that they're going to stop investigating these murders and pin everything on Diana Barnes's son, Devin, who wasn't involved like at all and isn't in the state, and apparently also has a lawyer girlfriend and is an NFL player. Which is all pointed out by Boy Wonder here, bear in mind. But we didn't also point out that he's also probably the only black man, I think, involved in this. Like, it's not like specified, but it's super weird optically that this is included, and like the FBI is going to target him. Really weird stuff. And out of nowhere, the police precinct's television goes on the fritz, and we get a recorded version of the assault on Victoria Evans and her brother Marcus, and also a recorded version of the assault on their father, Robert Evans. A dollar store version of Anonymous comes on and does the dark romance version of Live, Laugh, Love, and basically says, speak no evil, hear no evil, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to kill everyone. The monsters of this town are going to pay. And if you stay, you're one of them. And it basically says to the town, get the fuck out or I'm going to kill you. More creepy phrases are pulling up across town, and Lana tells us that her job is to slaughter and Jake's job is the geek stuff. Methinks the author doesn't really know much about computers. It just might be something, I don't know, I'm going out on a limb here. Things are in complete chaos at this point. Jake has somehow managed to make these like phrases show up all over town. He's making graves completely pop, like explode, the church bell falls, mirrors are shooting up from the goddamn ground. I don't know what this man does for a living other than like just cause havoc, but apparently he can do this, and as you can imagine, the town is in devastation. Not that we see it, I would just assume, because we don't actually know what's happening in the town. We don't even know how many people live in this town, but you bet your ass people are fucking scared. I would be very confused and probably not want to live there anymore. So people are going location, anywhere but here. This is where we get a great Hadleyism here, where she says that she finds Jake so sexy that she was having a nerdgasm when it came to the computer stuff. So much so that she had an actual orgasm. And like, girl, I didn't need to know that. That's in the category of too much information. I don't need to know as much about you that we all know now. Please keep that to yourself. But it's now time for Lana's last victim, TM, and it is the sheriff. I'm so tired. So the sheriff finds out that Lana is Victoria Evans, and he's like, how the fuck are you alive? Which, honest to God, considering what we know about how damaged she was, because like she was R-worded so much she can't have kids, like it's just in general, like it's pretty crazy that she's alive. And also, she apparently went into the hospital in like one day and walked out. I don't really know how you could do that with a face caved in, but she did. And she tells the sheriff that it took a lot of pain, a lot of healing, and a lot of tequila to basically come back from the dead. And I don't know about y'all, I'm a tequila fan, but I've never had tequila that could potentially bring me back from the dead. That is just, I'm just gonna say that right now. So Lana does manage to drag the sheriff into a shower and stabs him, and then ends that sequence with life goals. After she does this, she also puts on Shoot a Sheriff, the song choice, and to add insult to injury, she shoots the fuck out of the sheriff. Which honestly, if that scene was just the whole shooting the sheriff part, I would be fine, because honestly the shower part feels a little bit like the author saw a movie where a killer killed someone in the shower and they wanted to include that. But instead of, I don't know, just having it be I shot the sheriff, they had to do the shower part, and it didn't work. It didn't work at all. Nothing about this works. But post shooting the sheriff, we get a great, really weird and not even kind of creepy line from Jake, where he sees Lana all suited up and ready to go up against these guys. I guess in the police precinct is where they're deciding that they have to have their last showdown. And he says, quote, "Times like these remind me why I can't give up women. And right now, you're every nerd comic book sexy fantasy girl. That should be trademarked. And I am definitely going to put that on some merch. Let me know if you want it because, oh my God. What a line, what a banger, what the fuck do you mean, my guy? She's your sister." Like, they mention to each other that they're like siblings on this page. And he's saying, "You're the reason why I can't give up women because you're so hard and you give me nerd boners." So apparently Logan is watching this whole precinct explosion situation from the Batcave, and then when he sees that Lana's probably not going to make it out alive, he says something along the lines of, "Get me to the chopper." Like, literally. I haven't really talked about this since the beginning of the video, but there is something to be said about the behind the scenes of this story, and a Terminator reference in a smutty romance series that has a issue with the way that women are represented and the way that men are emasculated to make them seem vulnerable or victimized. It just feels weird. It feels very male gaze, very male centric rather than women writing men. And it just made me very confused and took me out of the story because bear in mind, he doesn't get there in time. Like, he doesn't save her. So why was this included? Why was a Terminator reference included in this book? What, it is a Terminator reference, right? It's a Predator reference. Yeah, well, that's on me. Well, but either way, it's still weird. It's still weird. Don't get me wrong. I have seen Predator movies and Terminator movies. I just feel like this reference in this series just feels strange. More on that later. So Lana tries to make a final dash for it, but then she ends up succumbing to what she thinks is death. She ends up seeing Marcus's face, but it isn't Marcus. The face turns into Logan, but she isn't saved by Logan. She's saved by Jake. On another soapbox here, I still have no idea what happened to Marcus. And I know that there's going to be comments that are like, well, on page 193 and 426 and 895, it's clear that he's dead. Well, we didn't see a body. And if there's no body in books like these, he's not dead. What happened to Marcus? I don't remember anything other than the fact that he supposedly has been, like, was driving around town trying to find a place that would help them. But he was also assaulted. Some of the assaults were like really, really bad, like appendage taking level bad. So they talk about him like he's dead, but then also it's like not really clear if he's dead. At some parts, the only person that was admitted was Lana. It just, as you can see, I'm annoyed. I don't understand why books like these can't be clear about things. So he never seemingly comes back. And book does not care enough to bring him back. Flash forward 3 months. Logan has apparently crashed out because his little itty bitty girlfriend died in a big fire. And he is very concerned about the fact that things seem to be weird about something to do with a character we've never heard of. Despite the fact that this man is on the force and was involved in a serial killer, he's still on the force. And I guess no one opened an investigation into her, even though it was clearly her, like Lana, that did all the killing. Like, how does he still have a job? Oh, wait, it's the United States Police Force. Of course he still has a job. Never mind. What am I talking about? But as I said, he's really obsessed with this one random character we don't know anything about, and like some money that have been involved in transactions going to this person who is taking care of an invalid man in a hospital. This invalid man is the original killer of Delaney Grove. So the person that was killing the women that people framed to be Robert Evans, Victoria/Lana's father. Logan goes, talks to this guy, and unloads a fucking clip into this invalid man's crotch region. Even though this man has been poisoned slowly for the past however long, Logan decides to do everybody a favor and murder this dude. Who is this dude, may you ask? Drum roll, please. Christopher Denver. He's kind of like the only remaining dude on the board, other than, like, I don't know, like, honestly, it could have been SSA Johnson. That would have actually been like a cool reveal. But it wasn't. It was the Robert Evans's best friend who had pretty much nothing to do with the town, and there was no reason why the town would ever have protected this man's identity. So I don't really know why we cared about protecting his identity, but he was best friends with Robert Evans, and apparently the reason that he was killing women was because he was in love with Lana and Marcus's mom, who hasn't been important. She's been mentioned, but she hasn't been important this entire time. But apparently that's why he was killing women, because he wasn't loved by Jasmine Evans. Okay. And once again, because fuck subtlety, Logan unloads a clip into this man's crotch and decides that that's enough for the day. The news does end up reaching Lana and Jake, who are on like a island of some kind, that Jake's dad is now dead. He doesn't seem to have any fucks to give about that at all. And apparently these two have known that his dad was the serial killer and set up him to become sick. Because remember, he was sick. And the other person that Logan was chasing after was the person that was poisoning him. Who cares? And then Logan strolls in to find Lana, and she's like, how did you find me? I faked my death and everything. And he's like, well, one time I asked you where you would go, and you said Greece. So I came to Greece, and here you are. Like, do you guys notice how she's literally doing everything in her life just in hopes that he'll find her? Like, I get it, it's love or whatever, but like, she drug like Jake to Greece in hopes that a FBI agent who may very well have a change of heart and decide to arrest her would find her. He doesn't have a change of heart, but you know what I'm saying? Just have an identity outside of your fucking significant other, my God. But also, there's a reveal at some point that Lana chose the name Lana because it was somebody in her family, I think, and Myers because she really likes horror movies now, and Michael Myers is obviously a very famous character. And it didn't take Logan all that much police work, because as we know, he's bad at it, to find Lana Voorhees. And also, apparently, Jake goes by Jake Vlad, like Vlad the Impaler, because apparently that's what he went as Halloween. I'm gonna throw up. I'm so tired. Epilogue. 3 years later. Thank God we have made it to the epilogue, and we do not have a surprise pregnancy, which I did think that this book series would have, because I wouldn't put it past this book series to have Logan to have a magic goddamn healing dick to help Lana have kids. But we fortunately don't have that, but we do have a very, very gross interaction between Jake and Hadley, because apparently if you're bi in this world, you are also into threesomes and polyamory, and albeit as a person who is on all of those spectrums, I do find it really fucking annoying that not only has the biphobia been present, it's ham-fisted down in this particular section, because if you aren't aware, there is a whole lot of information you can find about bi people and how it's kind of gross to insinuate that all bi people also want to have open relationships. Not to say that you can't be bi and have open relationships, obviously, case in point, but like, it's so frustrating that this scene, it's just really gross. It's just, I'm so mad about it. Like, on top of that, they're unicorn hunters. And some of you probably don't know what that means. That's okay. You don't have to. But just so you know, it's just bad look. It's just a really bad look. But this does beg the question, how have Lana and Logan been keeping their bedroom alive? Because their relationship is absolutely closed. Well, the answer to that question is Lana is still murdering people. That's it. That's the whole thing of this. Logan quit, I guess, the FBI, but he does still have contacts, you know? And so he gives Lana here updates on people that she can go murder. Because remember, she has technically the no one other than a rapist, right? Here's the thing, though. Remember the fact that the SSA Johnson framed her dad for murder? So I don't know why she thinks trusting the FBI is a good thing here, and that, like, there's never going to be a problem with that? I don't get it. I don't understand what we're doing here. But yeah, so she just keeps murdering people. Happily ever after. Or is it?